Once again, let's give a round of applause for our first session's panelists. Thank you very much. And at this point, we will be having a short health break. Once again, I would like to remind each and everyone to observe proper safety protocol. We will also be entertained by some special guests and performers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome on stage the Sining Tanglawan ng San Jose del Monte Performing Group. Please give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. ladies and gentlemen, the Sining Tanglawan ng San Jose del Monte Performing Group. Please give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that was actually fabulous and beautiful for showing our traditional cultural dance, right? And of course, transitioning it to the modern dance. All right, so I hope everyone had a good break. Before we proceed to our next part of the program, I would like to request everybody to please settle down. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to the next part of the program, I would like to request each and everyone to please settle down. Thank you very much. And now moving on to the next part of the program, the second plenary session will focus on discussing the key areas that will pave the way for us to achieve social transformation or living the life that we all aspire. It is my honor to introduce to you our panelists from the Department of Labor and Employment. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Secretary Bienvenido El Laguesma. From the Department of Health, ladies and gentlemen, OIC Secretary Maria Rosario S. Vergeire. From the Department of Social Welfare and Development, please give a round of applause for OIC Secretary Eduardo Punay. Next up, representing our local government units, we have the President of the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, Governor Dakila Carlo E. Cua. Our next panelist is the Governing Board of Directors of the Federation of People's Sustainable Development Cooperative. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Father Francis B. Lucas. This session will be moderated by World Bank Senior Communications Officer, Dr. Clarissa C. David. And the floor is now officially open.
Thank you, Ms. Ana. And magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Clarissa David ng World Bank. And I have the honor to moderate the second and final plenary discussion for today's event. Before we begin, I'd like to thank NEDA for this opportunity. As somebody looking in from the outside perspective, I look forward to learning more about the country's socioeconomic blueprint in the PDP and the government's interventions in executing specific strategies within the plan. In this session, we focus on the social transformation agenda of the PDP 2023 to 2028. The social aspect of development includes topics that are at the center of growth and human capital development, including healthcare, business and employment opportunities, and the delivery of government services at the national and local levels. This includes as well the critical role of education. However, Vice President and concurrent Department of Education Secretary Sara Duterte Carpio could not join us today as a panelist due to a parallel event launching the country's Basic Education Report. The Basic Education Report provides an overview of the current status of education in the Philippines and the agency's priorities. We extend our congratulations to the DepEd for the release of this important document, and we invite all of you here to read it together with the PDP. Now, without much further ado, I will throw the first question to our esteemed panelists, which includes Secretary Vergeire, OIC Secretary Vergeire of the Department of Health, Secretary Laguesma of Department of Labor, OIC Secretary Eduardo Punay of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, Governor Dakila Carlo Cua, President, Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, and Father Francis Lucas, Governing Board of Director, Federation of People's Sustainable Development Cooperative. So, in the last couple of years, the scarring from the pandemic, external headwinds, and internal developments all have affected the social sector deeply. impacts on human capital development have been significant. In this context, we'd like to hear now, perhaps starting with health and then followed by labor and then social welfare, the intent to pursue transformation in your sector within the near term as well as the medium term. And please highlight for us the major programs, activities, and projects in your pipeline that would contribute to achieving social transformation. I turn the floor over to Secretary Vergere.
Yes, thank you, Clarissa, and magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat, and of course to our esteemed co-panelists. For us to achieve social transformation through health, the Department of Health, of course, aside from COVID-19, where we are trying to stabilize and strengthen our surveillance system so that we still have safeguards for us to protect our population against the further transmission of this virus. Second would be, of course, for us to be able to ensure that the population would still have access to these newer technologies, such as the bivalent vaccines. And then the third would be for us to be able to still coordinate and collaborate with our local governments in ensuring that they have that capacity to protect their constituents and to help national government in preventing further transmission. That is just for COVID-19. So for this current and of course looking forward into our medium term, we also have to look at the other issues in our healthcare system, such as right now the most glaring issue would be our human resources issue, where we are seeing a problem in production, a problem in retention, and a problem in migration. So all of these three key issues we are now addressing through different strategies and interventions as included into our Health Sector Strategy 2023 to 2028, which is very much aligned with our Philippine Development Plan and also aims to achieve our Ambition 2040, where we will have security and also healthy communities and healthy people making informed, healthy choices by that time. So this health human resources, we have strategies working with other government institutions such as CHED, the Department of Migrant Workers, and of course Department of Labor and Employment, and also the other state universities where we intend to have scholarships so that we can produce at least 300 scholars by the end of this current administration, just for us to be able to have this kind of expertise, not just here, the scholarships, not just locally, but also internationally together with other development partners, where the Philippine American Education Foundation have already given us their commitment, and we are still working with other bilateral partners. Second would be that we are now pushing for an enactment of a law where the Magna Carta for our healthcare workers shall be further improved to include standardization of salaries so that we can be able to incentivize further our healthcare workers into staying in our country to serve. Then, of course, the third would be for us to be able to have this ladderized program of producing and purposively producing whatever we need as healthcare workers among our communities. The second one that we are currently working on would be access. Access to facilities, access to medicines, where we are now, based from the SONA of our President, that there should be these specialty care facilities, not just here in Metro Manila, but also we need to see them and people needs to access them in other parts of the country, like in Mindanao, in Visayas, and also other areas where it is far-flung. So we now have 46 functional specialty care facilities that would include heart specialty care centers, that would include brain specialty care centers, cancer, and the other primary or priority specialties that our people need. We now have 46. Our goal is to have 329 in the next years to come in this current administration, which comprises of 81 billion pesos investments. And we are now opening the market. We would like to create that market where it is not just national government investing in this kind of facilities, but we are encouraging our private sector also to align with the Philippine Health Facility Development Plan of the country so that we can be able to have this kind of facilities in the next couple of years. The third one would be or the last one, as I may say, would be the access to medicines. Right now, if we look at our surveys in the country, we can see that the highest out-of-pocket expenditures would be medicines. It would be curative care, and medicines would be top of the list. Around 80% of what people spend for with their money in terms of health would be spending for their medications, buying from drugstores. So that is one of the things that we would like to address right now, that our patients, when they go to their doctors, doesn't have to opt not to go to the doctor or opt not to buy their medicines because of financial barriers. This time around, we are creating with the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation the outpatient drug policy, wherein patients who go to their doctors, especially our outpatient facilities, primary care providers, they will be able to get their drugs for free through a form of reimbursements from PhilHealth to our providers. This would be our outpatient drug policy. Another innovation and reform would be the centralized medical store, wherein we will be setting this up in different provinces so that the fragmentation in procuring drugs and also financing will be removed because of this centralized medicine store. So these are all the different strategies for this current and medium term looking forward. But at the end of the day and eventually, all of this would be funneled through and will be contributory to the achievement of universal healthcare for everybody, which is the priority and primary goal of the Department of Health and the healthcare sector to achieve in these coming years.
Thank you very much, Secretary Vergere. It is really, really fascinating to hear about the plans of the Department of Health, including in health and human resources, facilities, and access to medication, and we're very much looking forward to all of the activities of the DOH. A major part of the PDP and the 8-point agenda has been jobs and a focus on jobs, which is part of our 8-point agenda. With that, I'd like to turn the floor to Secretary Laguesma about the plans of the DOLE.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. Let me first greet our attendees, our distinguished guests, my co-workers in government, our developmental partners, and our friends from the media. The plans and programs, priorities of the Department of Labor and Employment actually revolve around 3 major program areas, namely employment promotion and human resource development, workers' welfare and protection, and promotion and maintenance of industrial peace, as well as these plans, programs, and priorities are aligned with the 8-point socioeconomic agenda of President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. At the heart of the plans, programs, and priorities of the Department of Labor and Employment are actually consultation, social dialogue, and actually a meeting with the sectors, private sectors, and I mean workers and employer sector, as well as our developmental partners. Our main strategies would be aligned to promoting, setting up, or improving lifelong learning and education. Secondly, enhancement, strengthening of social protection system. And the third one is increasing the income earning capacity or ability of the workers. There are sub-activities or programs with this, and the bottom line or the common denominator will always be upgrading, retraining, upscaling of workers. Because we see a number of challenges before the Department of Labor and Employment and our social partners, the labor and employer sector, namely, how do we able to create quality, remunerative, and more secure jobs? How do we address the issue of skills jobs mismatch? We also look at the compounded effects of automation and the so-called our climate change. We are also concerned with the integration of full cycle employment intervention. And as mentioned earlier in the first session, how do we have digital competitiveness? In all of these things that we do and we plan, we always consult, dialogue with our partners, because at the end of the day, we have to have ownership of whatever programs, plans, or priorities that we have. And we actually desire to be able to be aligned not just with the PDP is actually a major document in our efforts now, in our consultation with the sectors, to come up what we considered the labor and employment plan for 2023-2028. This is very important for us because that will be the roadmap of the Department of Labor and Employment, together with the sectors, workers and employers, and our developmental partners, to be able to have social transformation, to be effective, and to be able to realize social transformation. These partners have to work together, collaborate with one another, be able to provide the government the inputs necessary so that we can also actually operationalize whatever plans and priorities that we intend to implement and to adopt in the next coming 5 years. So that at the end of the day, we will see quality jobs, inclusive growth, reduction of poverty, single digit. And we'd like to look forward also to the situation that more and more there will be cooperative and collaborative efforts, not just from the government, but all the sectors involved in the Department of Labor and Employment. That is the direction that the Department of Labor and Employment would like to pursue in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Laguesma. It has really been interesting to hear about the importance of dialogue and consultation as far as labor and employment is concerned, and how there will be a focus on a full cycle of employment. It also ties back together to what we heard this morning about collaboration with the private sector, which was an important theme in the earlier panel. We'd like to invite now to hear from OIC Secretary Punay about the plans of the Department of Social Welfare and Development in the next PDP cycle.
Thank you, ma'am. First and foremost, I'd like to begin by saying that the DSWD is one of the agencies that really felt the impact of the pandemic. Even up to the last couple of years, we've seen how our marginalized, poor, and a disadvantaged sector continued to suffer the impact of the pandemic. As a matter of fact, one of our flagship programs, our Assistance to Individuals in Crisis program, overshot our target by over 300%. We were targeting only 1 million beneficiaries last year, but because of the needs of our poor marginalized sector, we had 4 million beneficiaries, so that's an overshooting of 300% in target. So in response, in the short term, we've been strengthening our key programs in sync with the direction of the BBBM administration to make social services inclusive and accessible to Filipinos, particularly for the poor, disadvantaged, and marginalized. The tall order for the DSWD from the President is that we don't wait for our poor countrymen to go to our offices. And as much as possible, we have to reach out to them and go to their communities to address their needs. So we already started streamlining the processes for our programs, for accessing our assistance programs on disaster response, crisis situations, as well as hunger and malnutrition. We also made disaster response proactive with the prepositioning of relief items in strategic locations nationwide for faster relief response and operations. And as to the medium term, we understand that the DSWD will continue to play a crucial role in the strengthening of social protection, which is one of the pillars in the Philippine Development Plan. And we have set specific targets in the next 5 years in line with this mandate. Number one is we are targeting the increase in the coverage of our National Poverty Alleviation Program, which is the 4Ps, the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program, from 64.52% of all eligible poor households in 2019 to 85% in 2028. So increase from 64.52% to 85% coverage of our 4Ps program. How do we do that? That is simply by cleansing the list of beneficiaries and ensuring that those are no longer eligible are replaced in the program. Last year, we were able to let 175 beneficiaries graduate from the program, and in this year, in the first sem of this year, we are targeting 562 to 184 graduates from the 4-piece program, so that we'll be able to replace over 700,000 beneficiaries out of the 4.4 million beneficiaries of this flagship poverty alleviation national program. Number 2, we also plan to expand the beneficiaries of our social pension program for senior citizens from 60% in 2021 to 66.5% in 2028. And this is in collaboration with the new National Commission of Senior Citizens. And we also have new and strengthened programs in the DSWD for persons with disabilities, solo parents, children, former rebels, and also indigenous peoples, which are now being prioritized by the DSWD. And finally, number 4, we have started to strengthen our partnership with the private sector. They are no longer mere donors in our programs. We have been collaborating with the private sector in terms of capacity building trainings. So we've been meeting with our private partners in the private sectors for sharing of our program mechanisms, and so they can use them in their own CSR programs or their corporate social responsibilities program, so be able to implement them as supplement to our CSR, to our own national programs. So basically, these are the major programs that we will be focusing on in the next years. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Punay. I think we all acknowledge that disaster response is going to be a really important part of the DSWD program. With climate change ahead of us, it will really be an important set of interventions. Now we've heard from the national agencies, and in keeping with what we heard earlier as well, that local governments have a large role to play in the delivery of social sector transformation. I'd like to ask Governor Kua, who is also the president of ULAP, to share his thoughts about the role that local governments will play in social transformation processes in the country. The floor is yours, Governor.
Thank you, Clarice. Good afternoon to everyone, my co-panelists, honorable secretaries, of course, my fellow governors and RDC chairs who are here. Yes, so first we'd like to take notice and give emphasis of our appreciation of how the PDP and the President himself gave emphasis towards stronger collaboration between the national and the local government. And we in ULAP and the local governments look forward to having an equal responsibility, equal participation, and equal role in not only in the crafting of these policies, strategies, but also in the carrying out of the strategies, implementation, programming, and activation. I believe, as the pandemic taught us just a few years ago, it was key to our survival that local governments spoke directly with national government heads to be able to localize all the plans. So immediate in our mission as local government executives would be to localize the PDP into actionable, measurable local targets so that these lofty goals set on paper in this document can actually be realized, measured, and enjoyed by the Filipino people. Second, the President himself earlier mentioned the expanded role of the RDC chairmen and chairpersons, which I believe will be key. Hopefully this also entails that the local governments and the regional development councils will be part and parcel of identifying programs and projects that are context-specific to their community and ecosystem. We cannot always do it from the national point of view on a blanket scale, but instead will be context-specific and responsive to the different situations and needs of each community all over the nation. So we look forward for greater participation among the LG ranks in the budgeting, in the identification, in the data generation, in the planning, and the execution of these plans. And lastly, if I may add, we here in the local government have witnessed how the local government code was instrumental for LGUs to progress. However, it is probably time already, or the time has elapsed, that it's about time that we took a look at this piece of legislation and try to improve it even better, to become responsive to the needs of this age and generation. There were many mentions earlier about artificial intelligence, in fourth industrial revolution, so much technology to be infused. And of course, these things can all be better implemented if we were able to review the local government code in a comprehensive scale instead of just improving tiny bits and pieces of the code. So together with the local governments, together with DILG, and perhaps in other national government agencies, we hope to review and revisit the local code in the next coming years so that we can improve on it. And finally, we offer our wide network into generating investments and making LGUs investment ready, investment grade. We believe that under the President BBM's reform agenda, the local governments will be empowered to manage their local economies and make it more vibrant in the local context. So on that note, this will enable each mayor, each governor to be able to steer development in the direction that is needed in their locality. You can imagine 82 provinces trying to boost investment in their province, 146 city mayors trying to develop the much needed infrastructure within their city, especially in terms of transportation, and 1,489 municipal mayors doing the same, trying to generate more jobs for their community. So, not to mention the 42,000 barangays who give the support to all of this that will happen. So, we are there, we are ready, and we are partners with the national government.
Thank you so much, Governor Kua. An important reminder of the importance of partnership with local governments, and also that contexts are very different across many areas of our country. The concerns are different, the context is different, and localizing, we really look forward to the localization of the PDP targets and how that will apply at local government levels. Now we turn to the civil society sector, and we are joined by Father Francis Lucas. Father Lucas, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the part of civil society. What's the role of CSOs, and what do you think can be done between CSOs and government together in realizing social transformation? And finally, which areas do you consider as significant opportunities for collaboration with stakeholders?
A blessed afternoon to the honorable secretaries, the governors, our co-panelists here. We already began collaboration in our table number 3. We were discussing about problems, and immediately with Secretary Rene Solidum, whom I have known for many years, and we already have so many plans to pursue this PDP. And oftentimes we say, success of collaboration is kung sinong kakilala mo. I doubt it. A real collaboration is gaano mo kakilala yung partner mo. It's not whom you know, but how much do you know about your partner? So that it's easier for you to work together because you know each other. And this is my opportunity to somehow tell you what the FPSDC, a cooperative among so many cooperatives, it's a federation, the Federation for People Sustainable Development Cooperatives. So our vision is about equity, about improving the human potential, about committing ourselves to gather more cooperatives and in partnership with so many other agencies. So we have the 4 P's of sustainable development. That is the people, the planet, the prosperity, and peace. So we have programs on this. I spent 3 years of my life, the pandemic years, in the rural areas because I was afraid of COVID. And I felt more the problems of the rural areas. I'd like to tell you some of those because I was part of the experience. Number 1 is climate change. The terrible fear of floods, despite the alert systems that are already in place. Second is food insecurity and low nutrition, especially for children. Third would be the low price of palay and the high price of inputs. People come to me and they cry. So, and likewise, we are lagging behind in digitalization. Our cooperatives, many of us are now digitized, but the farmers are not. So we're looking forward to that because as of today, even the broadband is still very expensive. So the other part is access to very productive seeds is still difficult down in the rural areas. And also, and for me this is very crucial, the declining interest of the youth to agriculture and changing their mindset over and above ML and just playing ML and that's it. They have no more the mindset for productivity, for seeing to it, of social transformation. That's out of the game. So FPSDC has solutions to that in part of our programs. One of which is we see the value chains of marketing, which is very crucial, especially in the rural areas. We have e-commerce. We have now in different supermarkets selling the products of the farmers through us with our own FNC labeling. We also have the Y lead. We train not just a training session, but it takes years to coach the young leaders from different cooperatives from all over the Philippines to do agri-enterprise. And we're seeing now that a lot of them are very promising. We also have the Hive program. The Hive program is a incubation. At the same time, it's also a big help for enterprise. It's just like a franchising to different cooperatives in different areas. And last but not the least, one of our programs are also for training and collaboration with different sectors of society. The total population as of today of the cooperatives all over the Philippines is about 12 million. And we have 27 types of cooperative. So the areas that the PDP is trying to enhance for social transformation and to benefit of economics is all over the Philippines and so wide. And I'd like to say something here that for us, the cooperative is a socioeconomic equalizer.
Thank you so much, Father Francis. Now, I'd like to ask a question that's a little bit more implementation side. In particular, one major development that we've seen nationally is the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, which comprises an important change in the way governance will work. The ruling is considered an opportunity to optimize the sharing of responsibility between local and national government. And moving forward, what are the critical transformative actions to efficiently and effectively operationalize the Mandanas-Garcia ruling for your sector? Maybe we can begin with our sectors that are devolved, starting with Secretary Vergere of Health, and then perhaps followed by Secretary Punay of DSWD.
Yes, thank you, Clarissa. The Mandanas-Garcia ruling has given us that ideal picture of how national and local government should work together. It has also given us that some kind of aspiration where our local governments eventually will be well capacitated and they would be able to, like what Governor Dax has mentioned a while ago, they would be leading the steering of their different sectors towards the fulfillment of objectives for our people. Now, for this Mandanas-Garcia ruling, especially for the healthcare sector, we were able to draft this national allocation framework because understandably, even though there would be this increased funds coming from the national tax allocation for our local governments, there would still be some local governments who would not be able to fulfill the role that is being given to them at this current time. That's why we did this national allocation framework whereby we are still going to continue on assisting this low income and high gap area where we were able to plot all of these municipalities which we will continue to fund the different provided commodities, services, and augmentation for human resources and infrastructure in the past. So this Mandanas-Garcia ruling, together with our national allocation framework, eventually this transition period as based from the Department of Budget and Management's guideline would be for 3 years, whereby after 3 years, our local governments would be able to fund for their own services and provide this kind of services, for example, for health to their constituents without the help of the national government. One of the major highlights for this, and I think would be very beneficial to national government, would be the rational sources of financing for local government. For now, if you try to see our provision of services and goods and medicines, for example, we'd see fragmented sources of financing where national government would procure commodities, for example, for high blood, for hypertension. Local government also procures on their own. And then the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation would also include that into their benefit package. So there is this fragmented sources of financing. But once we delineate this kind of functions and once we delineate this kind of financing, where national would only be procuring and would be only providing for our priority programs where there is economies of scale, and local governments will be procuring for the rest of the needs of our population, then we can have rationalized financing and maybe efficiency of government will soon be achieved by having this national and local collaboration.
Thank you, Secretary Vergere. I'd like to turn now to Secretary Punay on your thoughts on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling.
Thank you, ma'am. The DSWD understands that partnership between the national government and the provincial and local government is very crucial in terms of implementation of programs, especially the national programs. We in DSWD have seen that many times. How we implemented our major programs in side by side and hand in hand in collaboration with provincial governments and the local governments. Whenever we implement AIX, SLP, and the disaster response, we always coordinate and collaborate with the local governments. Now, in terms of the evolution, of course, we're in the stage of preparing and capacitating our local counterparts, the local social welfare offices, through technical assistance, resource augmentation, and capacity building efforts. Because on the part of the SWD, while we have very big programs and we have to make sure that our partners, local partners, are really prepared in implementing them on the local level before we fully devolve our programs to them. So we're at that stage of preparing them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Secretary Leguesma?
Yes, incidentally, Governor Dodo Mandanas is part of our attendees today. Governor Dodo Mandanas is there. Good afternoon, sir. On the part of the Department of Labor and Employment, with or without the Governor Mandanas ruling, we have been fortunate to have the support, collaboration, and assistance of local government units. We have this mechanism called the Public Employment Service Offices. And through the years, we have actually requested them to institutionalize This mechanism very important on job facilitation, even referral training, and then promotion and providing of livelihood projects and programs. And this year, even on the case of implementation of programs of the department vis-a-vis temporary employment assistance, we always partnered with the local government units, and we are happy that we are able to produce results that are actually being, the beneficiaries are their local constituencies, and that makes us proud working with the local government units. And we would like to look forward to, in our trust, to be able to help go to the life that we want to have through social transformation. Local government units will really play a very big role. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Now I have a specific question for Governor Kua, as Governor and as well as President of ULAP, regarding the capacities of our diverse local government units. Governor, we witnessed a number of LGUs innovate very quickly in their response to the COVID pandemic, for example, on test, trace, and treat, vaccination campaigns, distribution of cash support to families. If we face more complex challenges, not only from the pandemic, but also other domestic and external headwinds, it would be great to enable more of these proactive and innovative local governments. How can national and local governments help enable innovation and adaptation at the local level?
Thank you so much, Clarice. I'd just also like, just as we acknowledge Governor Mandanas for the petition, I'd like to make note that the author of that decision in the court is also here in the person of E.S. Bersamin. He was the one who wrote that decision on the So thank you, E.S., for giving us more money. So, yeah, you're right, Clarice. In the pandemic, all sorts of creative solutions were brought about by different local governments. And we can see that if we allow enough room for creativity and enough support in terms of resources and technical expertise, LGUs will step up and the best of the Filipino will come out. So I would like to encourage the national government to continue partnering with local governments, not only in specific projects, but also in the drafting and creation of new and future programs and projects. You will see that a lot of LGUs are strapped for resources, kulang ang pera, and therefore the creativity comes when you have lack of resources. For example, we do a lot of convergence in the local level. We use the TUPAD and the GIP programs to fund augmentation in our education sector to help augment the income of volunteer teachers. When there's a calamity, we use TUPAD or GIP to hire people who will help reconstruct damaged homes and many other convergence programs. So yeah, please do encourage the national government to partner with local governments so that we can continue generating creativity among the local governments. Thank you.
Very much, Governor. Now I'd like to, just a quick reflection from Father Francis Lucas about your experiences on the ground with LGUs that really do not have the resources for their programs. How can this development assist in this particular aspect?
Thank you, Clarissa, for that. We have partnership with local governments, but we see that we need monitor and budgeting projects and this implementation. We also believe that the cooperative movement is an appropriate vehicle for the PDP to be implemented. Why? Because we're community-based. We are now massive in the whole Philippines. Our leaders have become truly professionalized, and we have very good staff. And our collaboration with all other cooperatives through our federations from the primaries have, with the CDA, very strict guidelines. And we continue to have workshops and seminars. And also, last but not the least, we have the philosophy, we have the strategy, we have the values of social transformation, development, and growth with the heart that means inclusivity. So this is the partnership we see and as government, from the national to the local government, that we are here to serve with you, our people.
Thank you very much. I'd like to turn now to maybe one last theme for this panel before we close, which is connectivity, both physical and digital connectivity, and the implications that they have for your sector. It's one of the main strategies reflected in the PDP, and this includes both digital connectivity in the form of internet and bringing internet to more far-flung areas, as well as physical connectivity in the form of physical infrastructure. How important is digital and physical connectivity in addressing the challenges and attaining targets in your particular sector? And can we hear a little bit about some of your main initiatives to enhance connectivity? Perhaps we can start with Secretary Laguesma this time.
Thank you, Clarissa. Early on, even before I assume my role as Secretary of the Department of Labor and Employment, I was fortunate to be invited by World Bank for a dialogue on connectivity, digitalization, and we welcome this collaboration and partnership with our development and partners because we know that we can expand our reach by being assisted by our development and partners. And we point out that this is very necessary, but at the same time, considering that majority still of our constituencies are in the rural areas, those not savvy with modern technology, we should also develop hand in hand with our collaboration with the development partners a parallel scheme so that probably gradually we'll be able to encourage and inspire them to be technical savvy, because the first session this afternoon talks about a lot about artificial intelligence and being able to be connected. And unfortunately, Secretary Ivan has left already. He was engaged in trying to connect far-flung barangays and areas so that they will have access to services, not just from the local government, but from the national government. And so this will really be also the trust of the Department of Labor and Employment. Ease in doing business does not only mean being able to address the concerns and probably the direction of the business group, but also the workers group. They should also be equipped. They should be able to, that's part of the strategy on increasing the income ability, earning ability of our workers. And we do this through two attached agencies other than the Department of Labor and Employment, which is the mother agency, through TESDA, which fortunately has been given back by President Marcos Jr. as an attached agency to the Department of Labor and Employment. For a while, it has wandered from one department to another. It is back to the Department of Labor and Employment. And we actually really work for that because we see the linkage between training and employment opportunities. And the other one is the Professional Regulation Commission, which has to do with benchmarking with international standards so that our workers will actually be competitive internationally. And we try to also help out on the concerns of our maritime sector in a way that we can be able to more or less ensure that those who are actually being deployed or employed elsewhere, whether land-based or sea-based, we are able to equip them so that they can be competitive. They will get more remunerative job, more secure, and that they can place the Philippines at the center of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Laguesma. That's very important to point out that as we digitize, as we connect more, the labor market demands are going to be very different. There's going to be a need for more advanced skills. Now I'd like to turn to Secretary Vergeire about the health sector and what is the role of digitalization and connectivity, both physical and virtual.
Yes, thank you, Clarissa. With this archipelagic nature and situation of our country, where we have inter-island groups, where we have inter-island within one island in our settings, where we have very far areas with no access at all, where we have inequitable distribution of healthcare facilities, comparing this between the urban and the rural, comparing this between and among regions of the country, where we have inequitable distribution of our health outcomes, where our health outcomes would be very much different from the National Capital Region, say an urban area compared to an area in Region 4B, where there is poorer access to this kind of healthcare facilities. Physical connectivity and internet connectivity would be very important. During the time of the pandemic, when we've had limited access to our healthcare facilities, and there was this somehow fear of our population into going out and going to their doctors, we needed so much this telemedicine. And telemedicine was able to provide that cushion where our people were able to access services at the very least with these teleconsultations, and they were able to, they were managed accordingly through this telemedicine. And now we can apply this lesson that we have learned and these networks that we have established already during the time of the pandemic in this areas where we need this kind of services the most, like those far-flung areas, those areas that has to be, that you can only ride motorboats, or you can cross 2 mountains before they can access our healthcare services. These telemedicine services, together with artificial intelligence, would be very much helpful. As to physical connectivity, what we are doing right now is to do our healthcare provider networks, where we know that we cannot be able to establish and create all of these facilities in just, maybe 3 to 6 years. So we need to network. One area has to network into another area so that they can also access some of the services that are provided in this area where they do not have any access at all. These healthcare provider networks will navigate our patients into better services. And this kind of physical connection would benefit our population, for them to be able to have that kind of good access to healthcare services, and eventually we can address inequity in the country.
Thank you very much, Secretary Vergeire. Clearly, during the pandemic, we saw how important telemedicine was and how quickly the population had to adjust and the doctors had to adjust to really learning how to do it, and I hope we can continue that momentum. Now I'll turn to Secretary Punay for the DSWD view.
Thank you, Ma'am Clarissa. And just like the DOH, digitalization was also one of the biggest lessons we've learned in the DSWD during the pandemic, especially during the implementation of the SAP program, the Special Assistance Program. We've seen the importance of digital payments, and right now we're taking steps in the DSWD to expand this further, and we're working to make our Grand Store beneficiaries accessible not only via payouts, but more so through cash cards, e-wallets, and bank transfers. So these are the innovations we're doing to make our poor, marginalized, and disadvantaged more equipped with these kinds of methods. And also digitalization is also crucial for the DSWD in terms of updating of our database. Our programs have so many millions in beneficiaries, and we normally spend billions in updating our database, and through digitalization we'll be able to save this billions we spent in faster and more efficient ways. And then lastly, this digitalization strategy will also allow us to reach out to more beneficiaries, especially to geographically isolated areas, which are our target for this year. And that's part of the thrust of the administration, which is to make programs inclusive and accessible to every Filipino.
Thank you very much for the DSWD view. This is clearly an important priority agenda. We are running out of time, but I'll throw one last question and leave the final word to Governor Kua. Actually, we have a question from the floor that is really relevant to the points that you all were making on equity, in particular, what it would look like at the local government level. Let me paraphrase a little bit. This is the question for Governor Kua. While economic growth is necessary for poverty reduction, it's not sufficient for reversing inequities. Localizing the PDP will require a new set of new people-centered policies to address inequalities. But which ones do you think should be prioritized in order to address inequality?
Thank you for the question. That's true, but it is a huge step when you localize the PDP to address poverty and inequality. And one of the more important strategies or goals for addressing inequality is really providing access. So it really goes back to your previous question about connectivity. As we continue to invest in more roads, we allow more products from the hinterlands to come down to the market and perhaps make food become cheaper and provide income and livelihood to those in the far-flung areas. And as we put towers and communication equipment in far-flung areas, it's also the same. We solve financial inclusivity. The unbanked become banked. They can receive money transfers digitally. They can send money and make a living through those infrastructure. So definitely connectivity is one big strategy, and which is why we in the local government are also pushing for certain policy reform in sort of devolving functions in managing these systems. For example, one field that we can look at is the management of transportation within a province. Such management doesn't really have to be delegated to the DOTR, but better managed under the provincial level. As governors can ensure that the movement of goods within their province is easier, they can invest in terminals, they can put up PPP projects that will enhance connectivity, physical connectivity, as well as digital connectivity. So another is when it comes to providing telecommunication services, it's all within the national government. But again, it may be devolved or it may be granted to a local government which has corporate powers recognized under the local government code to be able to run and manage and deliver telecommunication services within their jurisdiction. So once you have 82 provinces managing their own transport systems, managing their own telecommunication systems, information systems, you are multiplying the capacity of DICT as well as LTFRB, and therefore perhaps will revolutionize connectivity in the countryside. So hopefully these are things that we can talk about with the national government agencies.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Sinabihan na ako na ubos na oras ko. But this is a really rich discussion. We could have gone forever. But we have run out of time, and I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists for this rich discussion. We conclude our second and final plenary session for today's event. This is the first of a series of discussions, as Secretary Balisacan mentioned earlier in the program. In the preceding discussions, we will attempt to answer some of the questions that were posted on Google Forms and we were not able to address today. We're very much looking forward to seeing these strategies and actions in the next few years, and together with you all, hope to witness the transformation of the social sector for the acceleration of human development in the country. With that, I now give the floor back to our host, Ms. Anna.
Check 1, 2. All right. Thank you very much once again. And that ends our second plenary session. And we would like to request all of our panelists and moderators to please stay on stage for our photo opportunity. And of course, we would like to call once again Secretary Balisacan to please join them. Secretary Balisacan, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much to our panelists. What a very inspiring and motivating session we have experienced today. This gives us a sense of optimism that we are heading towards a bright future for the Philippines. And at this point, as we move forward, let us hear an inspirational message from Executive Secretary Lucas P. Bersamin. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please.
I will omit the salutations because I know you are so eager to get out. Before I go to my prepared speech, I'd like to greet the prime mover of this Mandanas ruling, no less than Governor Dodo Mandanas. Alam ninyo, those of the local government units who do not know the history of local government movements to increase your share, Governor Mandanas has spearheaded through the years this effort. That ruling that we issued in the Supreme Court some years back is only one of many attempts to increase. So we should all be grateful to him, as well as to the late Governor Tet Garcia of Bataan. Silang dalawa, they are the main conspirators to increase the share of local government units in the national taxes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all the distinguished guests who are around, and other representatives from all the various government agencies and the private sector as well. I heartily congratulate Secretary R.C. Balisacan and the hardworking staff of the NEDA for the successful publication of the Philippine Development Plan for the years 2023 to 2028. While this PDP was completed in record time, only 6 months into the term of our President, the quality of the work was not compromised. We appreciate all those who contributed and collaborated to produce this PDP. The national government agencies, the local government units, the development partners, the stakeholder groups, and the other partners representing civil society and the private sector. On behalf of the President, who's addressed you earlier, thank you for delivering on his directive. The importance and urgency of having a development blueprint for the coming years cannot be emphasized enough. These times are full of difficulties and uncertainties. Although we cannot yet say for sure that the pandemic is done for good, we are still exerting serious effort to recover from its effects. We also saw the sudden surge of oil prices due to the crisis in Ukraine. Climate change is also upon us, and this is easily borne by the increased number of the calamities we face each year. In addition, there are the recurring problems buffeting our country, such as inflation, unemployment, food and energy shortages, crime and corruption, just to name a few. Given all these, we as a nation need a concrete strategy to overcome the many challenges ahead of us. With this PDP, our government can now follow a roadmap in moving forward towards our goal. With this PDP, we now know that based on studies, statistics, and projections made by the experts, there are solutions to these problems. Thereby, our vision for the nation will become attainable. The approaches laid out in the PDP are as equally impressive as the goals sought to be achieved. The whole of government and whole of society approaches ensure that the policies to be implemented are those that are necessary and effective to support or enhance economic growth. All government officials and employees are directly responsible to follow through with these plans. The President particularly calls on each department secretary and agency head to lead our respective teams, your respective teams, in the realization and attainment of the goals set and defined in the PDP. The President also needs the Congress to pass legislation necessary to effect the policies set forth in the PDP. No less important are the local government units who must assist in implementing within their localities the programs in furtherance of the goals as defined in the PDP. Other stakeholders, particularly those in the business and private sectors, must continuously support the government effort to bring to fruition the plans for our nation. Our national goals are quite ambitious, as they should be. Let me say that indeed we Filipinos should not rest, but should always strive for greatness. We are a resilient people, and this enhances our potential. Still, we have so much more to prove to the world. Consistent with our Bayanihan culture, we can work together, hand in hand, to realize a peaceful, prosperous, and unified Philippines. Again, on behalf of the President, congratulations to the NEDA for this momentous occasion. Thank you also to the moderators and panelists, including Madam Vice President Sara Duterte Carpio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary Bersamin. Ladies and gentlemen, we have embarked on a mission of transformation, and we are happy that so many of you have expressed support and commitment to join this mission. As digital transformation is among the crucial cost-cutting strategies of the Philippine Development Plan 2023-2028, our partners from the private sector are here to convene the Go Digital Pilipinas or GDP movement as a demonstration of our whole-of-society approach to economic, social, and institutional transformation. Now, to give us an introduction to Go Digital Pilipinas and its conveners, may we call the sector lead for digital infrastructure of the Private Sector Advisory Council, or PSAC, Mr. Henry Aguda. Please give him a round of applause. We would like to request all of the conveners, you please proceed on stage. You can now proceed on stage. Once again, to all the conveners, you can now proceed on stage. Thank you very much. So for the GDP conveners and supporters, I would like to call them ARTA Secretary Ernesto Perez, Sabin Aboitis from PSAC Strategy Convener, Attorney Froilan Castello for Mr. Ernescu, Joseph Herandro for Mr. Al Panlilio, George C. Quintanar, Chairman, CIO Forum Foundation, and Attorney Benedicta Du Baladad, Management Association of the Philippines. And also we would like to call the other conveners, Attorney Mark Goriseta, Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, Attorney Jessie Lanete, Abogadong Pinoy, Mitch Locsin of PLDT, Sara Alvarez, Digital Pilipinas, Miss Consuelo Garcia, Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, AJ Rosero, PropTech Consortium, Tisha Quintino, Gabay Guro, Archibald Tolentino, President, Information Security Officers Group, or ISOG. You can now proceed on stage. Yes, please. Carlos Jose Gatmaitan, Institute of Corporate Directors, or ICD. One at Between International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium. Yes, please. You can now proceed. Thank you very much. Jeanette Carrillo, IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines. Ana Margarita Hontiveros, Abortees Foundation. Brain Inajada, Metaverse Ventures and Platforms. Che Cabal Revilla, MWell Philippines. Attorney Ernestine Villarreal Fernando, or Attorney Jose Luis Alcayoli, Philippine Bar Association. Feliz Gonzalez, Tahanang Walang Hagdanan Incorporated. And John De Castro from ULI Philippines. Thank you very much. And of course, we would like to request Secretary Balisacan to please join them on stage. Thank you very much, sir.
Ladies.
Okay. Good day, everyone. So I guess I stand between dinner, between you and dinner. So this is a show of force by the private sector. First, we'd like to acknowledge His Excellency President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos and his much appreciated efforts at the forefront of the country's digitalization. I would also like to recognize the main convener of PISAC, Mr. Sabina Boitis, for his persistent and full support to the Go Digital Pilipinas movement and its advocacies. I would also like to express our gratitude to National Economic and Development Authority, NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and his agile team of organizers who helped us include this in the program. Of course, all the government leaders and your teams for being the ones who will execute the PDP Plan 23 and 28. Advance thank you to all of you. So, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to the conveners of the Go Digital Pilipinas movement for their unwavering support and commitment to our vision and mission. My colleagues in the private sector are here in step with the government towards a common national dream of a progressive Philippines. The common reason why we are gathered here is to answer the clarion call of the President to support the vision and advocacy of the global Go Digital Pilipinas movement. Each of us advocates and aims to reinvigorate job creation and accelerate poverty reduction by steering the Philippine economy back to its high growth trajectory. The movement shares and aligns its plans with the Philippine Development Plan 2023-2028, which provides cross-cutting strategies such as digitalization, public-private partnership, and dynamic innovation ecosystem. Digitalization has proven itself as a key driver for economic growth, job creation, and price stability globally. However, we cannot discount the challenges that come along with it and must bridge the digital divide and keep pace with digital literacy that is required. Public-private partnership, on the other hand, also plays a driver for the three goals, but we must be keen on ensuring that the partnership are inclusive and sustainable. While we acknowledge the dynamic innovation ecosystem is crucial and could leverage our country's competitiveness, we must also recognize and address the challenges of intellectual property rights, access to funding, and the lack of support for startups and entrepreneurs. In order for us to fully enjoy the perks and opportunities for a more robust economy and society presented by the enhanced connectivity, we are here to address the challenges of infrastructure development and access to affordable internet. The signing of this milestone by the conveners of Go Digital Pilipinas movement is a significant step forward in our journey towards achieving our goals. Once again, thank you to the conveners of the Go Digital Pilipinas movement for your support. GDP for better GDP. Let us continue to work together towards a brighter, more digitally inclusive future for the Philippines. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Go Digital Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much to the Private Sector Advisory Council and to our government officials. Thank you very much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 Forum has now ended. On behalf of the National Economic and Development Authority, it is my pleasure to thank each and every participant here at the PICC, in Zoom, and those who are watching us on our live stream. We hope that this event serves as a motivation to all of us as we head towards achieving our dream of deep economic and social transformation and eventually realize our long-term aspiration of a matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay para sa lahat. Thank you very much, each and every one. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And now, may may we call Miss Fame Gomez to perform on stage while we all enjoy our dinner. So sit back, relax, enjoy the good company and good food. This has been your host, Ana Luis Jimenez. My best wishes for a fun and enjoyable evening to all of you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Miss Fame Gomez.
Nagmula sa lupa, magbabalik ng kusa ang buhay mong sa lupa nagmula. Kung ano ang di mo gusto, huwag gawin sa iba. Kung ano ang iyong inutang, ay siya rin kabayaran. Kaya't pilitin mong ika'y magbago, habang may panahon ika'y magbago. Pagmamahal sa kapwa ay isipin mo. Kaya't pilitin mong ika'y magbago, habang may panahon ika'y magbago. Pagmamahal sa kapwa ay isipin mo.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Once again, I'm Fame Gomez from The Clash Season 4. And I dedicate this song to everyone. Mabuhay po ang Pilipinas.
tanging ang sugat ng iyong nakaraan. Napahiran ko luha ng iyong puso ay natayo muli ang kalayaan mo. Ang pag-ibig ko'y sa'yo, inang bayan. Ikaw ang siyang dalangin ko sa Diyos kailanpaman. Kuminang ng iyong bituin at sumikat ng araw. Ang kalayaan mo'y sinisigaw. Ang bukas ay tanging sa'yo nakalaan. Kayo maging ang kulay ko, dugo't pawis sinalay mo, di ka na maaapi. Ngayon o kailanman, pag-ibig ko'y sa'yo, inang bayan. Dakilang bayan, kapayapaan, iho'y muli nagkakamtan. Tulad nung araw, bago inagaw ang kayamanan mo, ang iyong kalayaan. Napahiran ko luha ng iyong puso ay natayo muli ang karangalan mo. Ang pag-ibig ko'y sa'yo, inang bayan. Ikaw ang siyang dalangin ko sa Diyos kailanpaman. Kuminang ng iyong bituin at sumikat ng araw. Ang kalayaan mo'y sinisigaw. Ang bukas ay tanging sa'yo nakalaan. Kayo